Good morning. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Lisa Wilson.
Tiffany Cofield.
And this is Quentin Hellier with New York Life. We're happy to have him with us today. And we're still going to speak some fluent sarcasm while we're here. But we wanted to talk a little bit about maybe first-time buyers, or are you thinking of entering the buying market? How do you know when it's the right time, and what kind of things should you take into consideration before taking that leap? So I have two guinea pigs. So I'll ask Quentin first. Why did you decide to buy your first house?
We were looking for something that we could have equity in long term versus paying somebody else's mortgage.
Okay. And you've done it more than once. You've purchased more than one home.
We have, we're in our second home now.
Okay. So, do you feel that the things you were looking for in your first home have changed versus the second home that you have? Were your needs or your wants different?
Sure, our first home purchase was in 2017, and we were set to get married that fall. We were actually building a house, didn't have a family starting, so didn't really matter where the schools were. Mm-hmm. We had a minimum square footage we wanted. A couple years later, we had started a family, started to outgrow our first home together, and schools were coming into play. So considering what we wanted in our second home, we started looking at more space, and also schools was the biggest priority for us.
Did you go through that process where you went and you toured homes with an agent?
I think the second time we toured two houses, it was three houses, yes, before we purchased one, settled on one.
And you had in the back of your mind an idea what you wanted. I take it you didn't find it at that point.
My wife was very careful in what she wanted. I was along for the ride.
You were along. Happy wife, happy life, right?
My opinion mattered, but not to the extent of hers.
So you were looking for location, for size, and you also had in your mind something that would have equity.
Absolutely, yes. It was we purchased our second home in 2020 when the market was just about to take off, so it was kind of perfect timing and looking in hindsight.
If you were to go out and start your home search right now, what would be your top priorities? In this day and age right now, what would your top priorities be? We know you're bougie.
Space, like
Okay.
square footage for
The
sure.
square footage.
A yard is huge for me.
Okay.
Like I want a big yard.
Big yard. Define big. Half an acre, 5 acres,
I want like
10
5
acres,
acres.
5
I
acres.
want like 5 acres. I don't want to be near anybody.
Interesting. So getting out of the mainstream a little bit away, just like you did, is still kind of appealing. Has that changed since the pandemic? I mean, do you think that your mindset has changed at all?
No,
Okay.
no. I always wanted to have a big open space for my kids to run around and like not have to worry about like cars going through the neighborhood too fast or like
Okay.
having space for them to play.
Okay. Number of bedrooms, number of stories in a house,
I would really love a 1-story. I hate stairs.
Okay.
And I think that's changed a bunch since I was young. Like I always thought it would be super cool to have like a 2-story or a 3-story home. And now I'm like, ooh, a 1-story with everybody and everything on the same floor sounds divine.
Did you ever think of that, like 1-story versus 2-story?
Our first house had a bonus room upstairs with steps, and it wasn't really a consideration in our second home.
I feel like I see more people wanting a 1-story home. People my age, I mean, obviously,
Right.
but younger people, it's interesting to hear that. So owning a home, what's been the biggest takeaway for you? What are the pros and the cons of owning your own home?
The biggest pro is, goes back to the root of why we wanted to buy is the equity. Over the last 3.5 years, we've seen the equity in our house increase. We've been able to do some things with that. Cons, conversation we had the other day about fixes or repairs in the house, that's probably the renter's biggest advantage when they're renting versus owning is they're not responsible for
Make
repairs.
that phone call and
Yeah.
the hot water heater's replaced, yeah, or the microwave.
Or the microwave.
Would you do it again? Would you buy a house again if you were
Renting?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Interesting.
The more you know.
There are pros and cons to buying, pros and cons to renting. There are some great first-time homebuyer programs out there. We work with a wonderful lender who can talk you through all that. You have to decide when it's the right time to buy and what your must-haves are. What are the things that you absolutely must have in that house in order to make it yours. Every once in a while we have that buyer that comes along and says, they walk into the house and they're like, you can almost hear angels singing over their head. It's like they have that moment of this is it, there's a connection. So, and we love to see those. But the reality of it is you might like all those trappings and all the visual, whatever word you want to call it, but what's the house need? Does it have structural issues? Does it sit in a flood zone, or are the neighbors partying beasts that just don't stop? You have to look at all those things. So this has been interesting. This has been very interesting. You can't think of anything else you'd want in a house other than a yard and some space and nobody around you, just to be left alone? You heard that, right, Josh?
Does he know he has to cut 5 acres?
Yeah.
No, he's gonna hire somebody to.
He's
cut
going to
down
hire
there.
somebody, yes. 5 acres of land does need a large lawnmower, a crew, or 10 goats, one of
Ooh,
those.
some
Yeah.
fainting goats would be cool.
Fainting goats.
They're not all that they are hyped up to be.
4 bedrooms, open. I don't like boxy. I want a big open space in my house where
Okay.
everything kind of flows.
Okay. So open concept is still a thing?
Yes,
Okay.
open concept is still a thing.
How would you feel if you had to rip some walls out?
I'm not ripping any walls out. But
Well, we know
I
this.
But I wouldn't be opposed to it if I had a vision. You know what I mean? If I was oh, I could take this and it would be absolutely what I wanted, I wouldn't be
Right.
I wouldn't be opposed.
Kind of like Quentin with what he's got going on with
Yeah.
the addition. You had a vision, you knew what you wanted.
My wife had a vision. I was along for the ride.
You've trained him well, Carrie. Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to do some videos with Ellis Liverman, with our favorite mortgage team, Holland Mortgage. And we'll talk a little bit more about some first-time home buyer programs that are available. And we really appreciate you tuning in. Tell us what you look for in a house, or if you've even thought about maybe starting to think about buying your first home, because we're here to help you. If you have questions, let us know. You can reach out at 866-9-OFF-ROAD. And as always, beep at the Jeep.